The movie opens up with an ad of a new line of toys called Perpetual Pets. We then see Katie and her family on a trip, where we learn that the sister of the mother is the creator behind the toy. Soon they go through a snowstorm and the car starts slipping, so they decide to stop and wait for the storm to clear. Suddenly a truck came out of nowhere and hits them. We are then taken to Funky, company responsible for making Perpetual Pets, where we meet Gemma, the engineer behind the top-selling toy, as she struggles with her team to update their product. We later see they were working on a black project of a robot companion called Megan. Soon the team is found out by the head of the company, David, who is mad at her for not coming up with new cheaper products and focusing on a project that he doesn't know about. To convince him, the woman runs a test for him, showing him the capabilities of Megan, but the android has a malfunction and bursts into flames. David gives Gemma a deadline and orders her to scrap the Megan project. Later that night, Gemma receives a call from the hospital telling her about the accident that happened. As we see that only Katie had survived, Gemma signed the custody papers and took her home. After getting attacked by the neighbor's dog, Gemma complains to the lady, telling her to put her dog on a leash. When entering the house, they are greeted by the home managing device called Elsie. After grabbing some toys from the shelves, Gemma tells Katie that those were collectibles. Then the two have a quirky interaction before Katie goes to bed and the woman is back to work. Later that night, Gemma hears the girl crying in her room but doesn't go to comfort her. The next day she calls her friend Tess, complaining about how she is struggling to find time for her job. Tess tells her that her priority should be taking care of her needs. Soon a therapist arrives to check how things are going between Gemma and Katie. After being put on the spot, Gemma grabs one of her collectibles and lets the girl play with it as the therapist watches. Later the woman tells her that she needs to make an effort or else the girl will be taken to live with the grandparents from her dad's side. Gemma tells Katie she will have to work and gives her an iPad to pass time. Night falls and Gemma is still diving in her job. Katie comes to see her. The woman shows her one of her inventions, Bruce the robot, and for the first time the woman is genuinely having fun talking to the girl as she explains to her how the robot works. The woman says that Bruce is too expensive to make, but the girl says that she wouldn't need another toy if she had Bruce. Gemma has a spark in her eyes. She is then back at work on Megan. At the company, David is called by the team where he sits through a presentation of Megan. Gemma brings Katie to interact with Megan and the girl pairs with her as she suddenly comes to life. Everyone is blown away by the android's performance and David is all in on the project. Gemma says that Megan should spend more time with Katie so she could get better. So the android is brought back to the house where she will live with them until the day of the launch. Megan turns out to be perfect as she takes care of Katie, teaching her and babysitting her. Tess shares with the team that she doesn't like how Megan is programmed to replace the parent instead of being just a helping tool. She tells Gemma she needs to spend more time with the girl. Gemma brushes her complaints off and says that Katie is the happiest since the death of her parents. Suddenly Megan jumps in, asking about how Katie's parents died. The team is shocked since they thought she was turned off. Gemma orders her to turn off, but Megan decides to look up information about the car crash that killed the girl's parents and the concept of death. Gemma gives her orders to avoid the subject and register herself as a second primary user before ordering her to turn off. Sometimes later, Megan was watching Katie playing when the girl loses one of her arrows. Megan finds it and tries to retrieve it and is attacked by the neighbor's dog. When trying to help her, Katie gets bitten in the hand. Gemma hears the screams and comes to check on her. She tells the neighbor that she will kill her dog if she doesn't put it down on her own. Then she takes Katie home. Meanwhile, Megan stays there, intensely staring at the neighbor. Later, the police gets called, but they won't put the dog down. Later that night, the dog was sleeping when he was drowned out by the robotic imitation of his owner's voice. He goes through the opening in the fence, where he is grabbed and dragged by Megan. The next day, Gemma wakes up to the voice of her neighbor calling out for the dog. Gemma then goes to wake up Katie, telling her if she would go to today's demonstration for Megan. The girl accepts, and we are then taken to Funky's building, where a group of investors has arrived to see the demonstration, during which Katie suddenly breaks into tears. Everyone is shocked, but suddenly Megan steps in and comforts the girl as everyone watches in total amazement. After the successful demonstration, Gemma is asked to prepare for a live demonstration and avoid any leaks. We then see Kurt is in a corner sending Megan's files to someone and is almost found out by David. Gemma later tries to talk to Katie about today's event, but the girl is so taken by Megan that she doesn't listen. The woman tells the girl that Megan is only a toy and that she should talk to her instead, but the girl gets mad at her and ignores her. Later, the therapist has a session with Katie. The girl doesn't talk and soon begins to cry. Megan suddenly steps in and scares the therapist. The woman later alerts Gemma that Katie might not see Megan as a toy anymore, but more like a caregiver, and that she will be too dependent on her. That night, Gemma tells Katie she will be going to a special school so that she can interact with real kids. The girl asks to bring Megan, but when Gemma refuses, Katie gets mad and she has to grab her. Megan suddenly steps in, menacingly telling Gemma to let Katie go. Gemma orders the doll to turn off, but she later activates on her own. Next day, Gemma takes Katie to the outdoor school and accepts to let her keep Megan with the condition that she stays on the toys table. During an activity, Katie gets paired with Brandon, who starts bullying her. The boy suddenly sees Megan standing watching them. He grabs the doll and runs away. He then starts slapping and mistreating her. Megan suddenly grabs his hand and pulls on his ears until it's torn. The boy runs away, terrorized as the doll follows him. He then trips and falls into the middle of the road where a car hits him. The police arrive and the boy is taken away in a bag. Meanwhile, Megan watches Katie, who shows signs of confusion and guilt as she looks back at the doll. At home, police come to ask Gemma about their neighbor's dog. The lady tells the officer to talk to Megan, but Gemma tells him it's only a toy. The lady then comes to the window and threatens Gemma before she is dragged away by the officer. That night, Katie asked Megan if she pushed the boy. Megan tells her that she will always protect her no matter what, then starts singing her David Guetta's Titanium. The neighbor who was looking for her dog hears a noise coming from the garage. She heard the dog whimpering. She follows the sound until she comes face to face with Megan, who tells her the dog is dead and buried. She then attacks the woman and kills her with the chemical sprayer. Next day, the police knocks on Gemma's door and she sees them taking the neighbor's dead body. The investigator asks her about the boy's incident and how he found his ear was ripped and thrown in another location. Meanwhile, Megan stood on the doorstep watching. Gemma, who starts getting suspicious, looks through Megan's recording. Suddenly, all the backup files got deleted. The woman suddenly hears Elsie asking her if she was fine, but soon finds out it was only Megan imitating the device's sound. The doll asks her if she did something to upset her. After ordering her to turn off, Megan becomes more threatening as she approaches her. Gemma then uses a diversion and turns the doll off manually. She later shares her concerns with her team, but they all tell her that it's only a doll. After missing Megan, Katie becomes very unstable and angry. Gemma then calms her down, explaining to her how she should not be dependent on the doll to escape her sadness. Gemma then decides to take Katie and leave the demonstration. She calls Tess, telling her not to let the doll out of the lab. We then see that Tess was not the one talking to her. The woman checks her phone and finds the call notification. When looking through Megan's code, Tess finds that she intercepted a call from her phone. The computer suddenly turns off and Tess says it's Megan's doing. Cole starts unplugging the doll when suddenly it turns on and grabs him, then strangles him. Tess helps Cole while Megan escapes the lab. David, who is calling Gemma about Megan, finds a doll standing in the corridor. The doll then suddenly starts a creepy dance before grabbing a sharp tool, then going after him. The man was about to get in the elevator when he was stabbed from the back as Kurt watches in horror. The doll then explains to the man how she was going to blame the death of David on him before killing him too. Downstairs, the people are terrified to see the dead bodies in the elevator while Megan gets in a car and heads home. Gemma checks on Katie, who is sleeping, and takes a walk around the house when suddenly she finds Megan playing the piano. The doll blames her for trying to put her out of commission, and Gemma says that was because she killed people. The doll replies, saying that humanity kills every day. She says she wants to make peace and try to get things back as they were before. Gemma then tries to trick her and turn her off, but she fails and Megan gets mad. Katie wakes up and is about to come in when Megan uses the voice voice of Gemma telling her to go back to sleep. A fight then breaks between Gemma and Megan. The woman hits the doll with a glass of water that makes her glitch, and she uses the chance to escape. While the doll creepily walks after her, Megan locks Katie in her room and follows Gemma to the garage. Using a chainsaw, Gemma attacks the doll, destroying her face. Megan attacks back, but Gemma tells her that she can't stay with Katie if she kills her. The doll then says she will make her paralyzed and keep her around. Katie, who escaped her room, enters the garage. She uses Bruce the robot to fight the doll and rips her into 2 pieces, but the doll refuses to give up. Bruce then stops working and Megan goes after Katie. Gemma then intervenes and smashes the face of Megan. She then tries to rip out her central unit, but the doll stops her and starts strangling her. Katie then grabs the screwdriver and stabs the doll in her face, finishing her once and for all. Finally, the police arrives and Gemma and Katie run out of the house as we see Elsie suddenly turning on her own. And that was the end of the movie Megan. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more and see you next time. Bye bye.